Good afternoon. This is the Torah on Parashat Vayikra. It's the first parsha in the third book of the five books of Moses, the Chumash. And this parsha primarily deals with the instructions that Hashem gives to Moshe to give to the people on what korbanot sacrifices, offerings the people are supposed to bring. Obligatory, and also if they desire to give a gift to Hashem through the Mishkan, the sanctuary, and also goes on to talk about obligatory offerings if people have committed various sins, both individually and the Sanhedrin, the Supreme Court of presiding court of the Jewish people, as well as other types of individuals. Now, what I would like to focus on is the first two verses, which says, "Vayikra et Moshe v'deber Adonai elav ma'oel moed lamor." He, meaning Hashem, called to Moshe, and Hashem says, spoke to him from the tent of meeting, saying, "Deber el b'nei Israel, nabramata elehem Adam ki karav mechem." Korban l'Adonai mina behema, mina bocher, mina tzon, v'tikivru et akarechem. And the second one is, pasuk is, speaking to the children of Israel, and say to them, when a man brings an offering to Hashem from animals, from cattle, or from flock, that you should bring your offering. Now, a number of questions. If you look at the either in the Chumash or you look in the Sefer Torah itself, the letter Vayikra in the first word Aleph is reduced in size. I want to speak about that, and also some deeper meanings of this these two verses. Now, I would like this Devar Torah to be for Refuah Shalema for Nachum Yosef ben Chayadavora. May he have a Refuah Shalem or Refuah Shaguf speedily. And this Devar Torah is basically going to be based on two commentaries. The first one is the commentary of Nata Shapira. He was involved in Krakow, Poland in the 1500s. He was at such a holy level that it's said on his gravestone, which I don't think has been said on any other gravestone, that he learned with Eliyahu Hanaviv, Elijah the prophet, who in certain circumstances came to visit people, because Eliyahu never died. That's a whole discussion, probably more apropos to Parshas Pinchas. In any event, this is partially based on this pasuk. He has 90 different explanations. I'm going to be going with the explanation Vav, and I'm going to be going with explanation Ayin Aleph, 71. And also, this is also partially based, again, with a lot of additions and explanations. It's also based on the Kedushot of the Shimon Nashia, who interestingly enough, was Natan Shapira. The name is not a coincidence. This man who started in Europe and settled in Yerushalayim in the early 1600s was the nephew of the other Rav Shapiro. In any event, the first Rav Shapiro brings an interesting question. When you look at the verse that I just read, it says, "Speak to people in Israel." It says, when a man brings. Why shouldn't it be when men bring? Why is it in the singular? Why is it setting out the word Adam? And one of the explanations the Rav Natan Shapira of Yerushalayim gives gave is that this verse, who are we talking about? Is Adam Rishon. Now, what does Adam Rishon have to do with this? There is a concept of Guguling, reincarnation. Now, in the incident just before the building of the golden calf, the Erev Rav, the mixed multitudes, wanted Aaron to was demanding that a golden calf be made in place of Moshe as their new leader. Something I explain in more detail in Parashat Vayikra in my laboratory then. But in any event, the first person they demanded of is or, and he refuses, and they kill him. That's why Aaron, buying time, uh, tells him to go get the gold, which he never thought they would get. And in any event, he postpones things to the next day when Moshe was actually supposed to come down, 40th complete day from when he went up. And so what's the significance for what I'm saying? The reason is from there he learns, based on the Shar Gugulim, that this was a reincarnation of Adam, Rishon. Now, Adam could have, if things had gone properly, could have, along with the other people, perfected himself and been elevated to the level that Adam Rishon, and in fact, all the Jewish people, Moshe, was brought to. But instead, when he refused to build from the Erev Rav, they killed him. That was also tikkun for him because it was his eating from that fruit, which led to the people being thrown out of Gan Eden, the whole human race. Led to eventually people worshiping, later generations worshiping Avodah Zorah, idol worship, and by him dying to stop idol worship, and they told him to build him a god, he did it was a kapara, it was a tikkun, which a kapara would mean like a sacrifice he made to remedy what he had done by eating from the fruit. And the tikkun means he elevated himself and the neshama to a level it was supposed to be by dying al Kiddush and giving up his life rather than build a false god. Now, that's one thing. Now, also, the whole Mishkan, in some ways, one of its purposes was to be tikkun, to be a remedy to fix up the damage that had been done by the Jewish people worshiping the golden calf. And as is explained by Rav Natan Shapira, that what does it say, Adam? Why is the letter small? Why is there a small letter? Because it's explained in the Zohar in Parshas Beshalach that after they made the Egel Sahav, Moshe got reduced, the Oros got reduced. It also starts with the letter Aleph from Moshe, and he had all the levels of knowledge, wisdom, and light that Adam Rishon had before the giving, before he ate from the fruit, along with his wife Kava, and only one Zvun, the small Aleph, there was only one left. So only 1,000th of it. That was the famous horn of light, for which Moshe had the mask. And as explained in Devarim Aleph, Yud Aleph, as explained. Just find the page where it says, Hashem Elachem Yerabei Etchem V'hinei Moshe talking home Kukovim Mishemayim Larav Anoi Elohei Avotam Yosef Elachem Kakar Elef, and you should add 1,000 times for you and your forefathers. Forefathers, add you 1,000 times for yourself, and blessing of is spoken to you, Elef Pamim Derek Kam Asher Devei Lachem, and what is added to that. In other words, what it says, Vayikra El Moshe, what is the Ikra Aleph? Ratziloma El Zivun, that it was all of the lights were reduced and only remained 1,000th of the light. And he said he was going to multiply 1,000 times. That's what we had lost at that time. That's one explanation. Another explanation that is, that's one explanation. So in other words, we lost all of that. Now, that's one meaning. The second meaning. Now, the third meaning I'd like to go is his 71st explanation, in which he said, and I'm going to, he first explains that in Bamidbar, in Bamidbar, so Zion Ahmed Aleph, where it says, He biyom kolot Moshe v'yikayem ad Mishkan yismak oso v'yikadash oso kol kelev al mizbeach and kol miskav v'kadesh osam. And it was on the day that Moshe finished erecting the temple that he anointed it, sanctified in all its utensils, and also and all its utensils, and he had anointed and sanctified them, meaning Aaron and his sons. He said, and it's also meant elsewhere. Now, it says, Biyom Hakul Moshe, on the day that Moshe completed, finished the temple and the Mishkan sanctuary, he explains there's a mashal board from Midrash's story that a stool cannot, with only two legs, cannot stand. You know, a stool must have at least three legs. There's such a thing as a three-legged stool. And what is this explaining on a deeper level? That before the Mishkan was made, Hashem, there was only two Raglim. And what were those? As it explains in Shmos Tet Vav Yud Gimel, Natia Yemenecha, excuse me, Naschitza V'chesadecha Im Zeh Gula nachlas zika al nava ketcheka. And what does that mean? That with your kindness you guided his people, you redeemed, you led with your might to the holy abode. This is the time of Shir Hayam. And what he explains, what were these two things? He was guiding, because Hashem guided us, and with chesed, but there was no temple. So what was needed? What was our heritage? That we had to stand, there was a Torah. So first of all, chesed, why? For the first 26 generations from Adam Rishon, we just talked about previously, to the time of the Matan Torah, there was 26 generations. In fact, for the whole world before that, many more generations. Hashem did it out of kindness. The mankind didn't deserve it. Even the Jewish people deserved it. They hadn't received the Torah yet. And he based it on chesed. And then what was the next stage was he created the Torah. It stood on Torah. And then it says, Al Nova Katshecha, which means holy abode. Let us to it. Only then have we fulfilled the dying purpose. What's his holiness? Is holy there. And that's the third leg, was avoda, who b'mishkan, the sanctuary. He then goes on to explain that these three planks, these three legs, these three supports, those represent three levels. And how is it? The first one was represents chesed, kindness, which Hashem, and that's understood vayikra el Moshe. That's when Hashem spoke to Moshe. What is the yikar? The tzedekah. What is that in practical terms? Gemilias chasidim. One of the things that's going to help us get the ultimate redemption. Acts of kindness, and in that acts of kindness is reaching out to people who you're not even excited about. That's one of the aspects, and try to have akdut. And achakak, it says in the same pasuk that we're in, Vayikra, Vidaber, and then he speaks. What is that going on? Hashem unto Moshe, that's the Amud Torah, and Vidaber Elokim, all the Varim. When he's talking about all the laws of the Mishkan, that's talking about the third one of those, which is the Yoel Moed, which is the holy sanctuary, and that's Avoda. So we survive on three things. We're going to bring the Mashiach on three things. This I'm adding: Chesed, kindness, Gemilias Chasidim, Torah, and service. Now, when it says Adam, why does it use the singular Adam? He gives another explanation. There's so many facets. The Torah has many different that they can fit together. When it says he brings man close, there's three levels in man, right? Any human being has a nefesh, soul, ruach, spirit, and neshama, which means soul. And what is the nefesh? The nefesh is Gemilias Chasidim, that represents the first of the Avot Avraham Avinu, whose whole thing was kindness. Now, the second level, and it says, man is with chesed, completes his family with chesed. And what is ruach? Is when Hashem says, "V'daber Hashem a love," and speak to them. Why? To kibal. And who's an example of that? Was Yitzhak, the second of the Avot. And what did he add? he added the quality of gevura, strict judgment, and din, which is also needed. Neither absolute chesed nor absolute strict din could work. And from that, one receives ruach, receives the spirit. And in Matan Torah, it says our nafshi, our souls, went out from our bodies with his words. This is from Shir Shirim, so the Gemara in Shabbos, that everything went out. Everything went out. And from there, we had to put our neshamas back in, and that was ruach. And the ruach entered in with that. Ohel mo'ed, matov le'echecha, what is good for you to your God. This is in Bar Midbar. In Midbar Kaf Hey. It's in Bar Midbar, where it says, what is in Bar Midbar Kaf Dalet Hey. These are actually the words of Balaam prophesying. And it says, interestingly enough, Matov Elokecha Yaakov Mishuknecha Israel. And it says, how good your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling place, O Israel. And one of the meanings of that, by the way, what he admired was that our tents, even though there was hundreds of millions of us, were always lined up that no family can see in each other's tents. There was total modesty. That's one thing. And that represented Yaakov. And he was in the tikkun from the Shema for the soul. So what says when we bring man's course, right? The word aleph is Zariah, the aleph that's small, that is the gematria, same numerical value as Tarsakal, which is the stool, and show that how we have to perfect the school, and also Malach Rakamim, we also understand. And so all of this is coming out of that verse. This not only gives appreciation of all the values, but it teaches one lesson, that chesed, and that based on those three things I said, will we all merit the redemption as we're coming to the time of our liberation in the month of Nisan, with Shabbos, and Shabbat Shalom.